Time. All right. Is there a motion to return to open session from recess?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, now is our 2:30 presentation. Chantel, anything you want to say beforehand?
Nothing specific, just routine. This is our final presentation for the day. White and Associates will be here to present their proposal to you all and to cover the questions that was provided to everybody. But if you have any questions for me during the time, feel free to ask, and I'll have them proceed.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your time this afternoon. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. That must sound good, the final presentation of the day. I've been on your side, so I understand a little bit of that. My name is William White. I'm the managing partner and president for White and Associates. We're about 15 years old. We have offices in Oklahoma City on Northwest 30th. We also have offices in Osan, South Korea, Seoul, South Korea, Masawi, Japan, Okinawa, Japan, and Nassau, Bahamas. We do quite a bit of federal work with Train, and we're a consulting firm with a base in Oklahoma City. So we do a lot of pre-construction with architects, engineers, owners. We also do general contracting, smaller projects. I think this year we'll do about 7 or 8 million. We do a lot of cost and cost analysis. We do scheduling, all 3 services with a premier P6. We do construction inspections, and obviously owners and architectural reps work at many locations. As in my submission, we have no litigation, no claims, no lost times injuries in our last 15 years, so knock on wood, we've been very fortunate. I would like to go to the second slide about the solicitation. Our interest really is due to the Code of Federal Regulations, CFR 200. We're pretty familiar with it. We do it a lot. We've done some work with ARPA for other clients. And it's a very unique program with the way it's done. We have county projects with joint committee approval, approved by the state legislature of federal funds, done under the federal guidelines. In connection with that, you're supposed to submit a cost analysis. As amended, you're supposed to submit a cost analysis on every project with a P6 CPM schedule, Primavera 6 schedule with critical path method. So we're familiar and very comfortable working in this arena. Also, we found in our selections of architects, sometimes they have problems with following procurement requirements, which include detailed product specifications. Most of our architects and engineers put in Dover elevator. That's not allowed. You have to make a description. So we're familiar with the pitfalls and mistakes along the procurement lines. One of the major items is the non-federal entity must take all affirmative steps to assure minority inclusion. Currently, White expects approximately 40% of our fee to be minority-based. Also, you said we went to 17 projects, correct?
Correct.
So we might not have to have the audits for projects under $750,000. So as part of CFR 200, we're also required to have audit and reviews of procurement. There's also quality control requirements. So again, we're very comfortable with the ARPA projects. We've worked with them, but more importantly, we worked with the FAR's Federal Acquisition Regulations and CFR 200. As an introduction, again, I'll be the point of contact, William White, and project leader. And today I'd like to introduce Mark Salazar, who has worked with me for about 10 or 15 years, and talk about compliance. I think it's important to have an in-house compliance officer or manager. Mark?
Good afternoon. I'll take just a second and do a brief introduction. First of all, Bill is correct. We've been working together about 15 years, and I'm president of a company called MMI. And the initial submission, they did include our company, my company, and the qualifications and the kind of experience we had. The role that I play really has to do with the fact that I've been doing projects for about 35 years. And a lot of that has to do with the compliance to budget and accounting and compliance to federal regs, or in many cases, just the requirements for private banking, commercial projects, or grant projects both at the federal and county level. So a few years of opportunity to work with Bill on projects. We've worked on some MAPS projects. We worked on Softball Hall of Fame. We did several of the train projects where we had to develop the budgeting for DoD projects, DoD funded projects overseas. And so compliance becomes a little bit more important when you're dealing with different federal regulatory agencies. You can't believe that it can get any worse, but DoD can get worse. So just the blessing there is that at this county level, I think you won't get as deep. I also know you guys have employed, I think, a third party company to do some of the compliance reviews and so forth. I read that someplace in the county records. Is it Accenture that you all are using as your ARPA fund consultants? Right. I've had the opportunity to be solicited and work with Accenture in the past. A lot of what I do is I work in particular roles, consulting, where we do all the way from budget reviews to begin with, or the initial construction of budgets. And then secondly, like I said, to go through that process and make sure that we stay in line. The emphasis that I would have in working with Bill in this project has a lot to do with the budget constraints and the compliance constraints. There were some really interesting quotes as I was going through the review of this project. And there's a group called the Government Finance Officers Association. And they were talking about how, because the final rules were not promulgated until April the 1st of this last year, I think is when they adopted the final rules. And I did not read all of those, by the way. They're lengthy. But needless to say, they're generally in the scope of standard practices. However, under the ARPA program, I think that we're still going to see several amendments to that, either through the FAQ systems, where people will say, what did you mean in the act when you printed this, or what is the purpose, or what is more information that you may need in order to meet the standards of this act. That's especially important, I think, in ARPA projects, because the onerous part of it is, if you fail to follow those leads, the county can be requested to repurchase that or reimburse the funds for that. So that leads back to I think the importance of making sure that you deal with compliance, with budgeting, and with ongoing definition of what the ARPA projects are going to require. So that became a real important piece as I was talking to Bill and we were doing our presentation. Again, I will primarily be available for compliance work. I will note that MMI is an SBA approved organization as a MBE, DBE. We've been around long enough that we also have state certification in Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. So we've worked a number of federal projects, again, both private and grant funded in each one of those states from a variety of local and state government funding agencies. I don't think I can stress enough that the concern all of us have, I think, when you're working on these projects is from the construction phasing, what happens if something goes wrong or we meet a construction change order that's going to require significant kind of additional consideration? Well, part of that is you also got to go back and say, do we have the money to cover that? And if so, what does that mean? And if we don't, what does that mean? And that's where I think the relationship that we would have as an owner's rep with the county is really intended to say, you've got another set of eyes that's helping the county and the departments get together and manage the communications. I think the communications of what you want to do in the various departments that are affected by this. Maybe a project's, one of them's in uh, public works, another one's in rehabbing an older building. Each of those may be under the auspices of a different county arm or county officers. So we try to really hone in on creating a communication, because that's what the strength of White and Associates is. You'll see on some of the slides, some of the projects we've worked on in the city of Oklahoma City under the maps, et cetera, and Bill's going to cover that in length. But we believe that having a variety of experienced professionals who are looking and overseeing these projects is going to be key. Some of the smaller projects, quite honestly, will prove pretty simple. I mean, you find issuing some Ps and you find some subcontractors. But those that are larger or more detailed that have abatement problems or other issues, again, some of these things come up during the course of standard construction. And that's where having a party available to the staff and certainly acting as an owner's rep in this situation to provide the information and communications to say, how do we handle those problems when they do come up? I'm assured there will be problems. 17 projects tells me there's going to be one problem somewhere in there. And that problem child is going to take much more attention and much more, professional review. And we think that we offer that review as a team. We have construction people who are on site. We have engineers and architects that we deal with. So again, if we can provide some assurance that as owner's rep, we're going to continue to serve a role of looking out for your best interest and making sure that communications between those parties involved in each project has meaning. Again, Bill's going to talk about the construction process and who's going to be involved in that. I do think that in mentioning ARPA funds, we have a lot of definition that is still going to come at us. And it wouldn't surprise me. We ran into a project Bill and I were talking about overseas where the project completed. We completed construction and they finally got a definition on one of the DOD requirements. That's not unusual. It's really not unusual. But that's where I think the experience of the staff in having dealt with various compliance issues, various budgetary issues, will be something that I think differentiates us a little bit from some of maybe the other applicants for this particular project. So I'm going to turn it back over to Bill. Bill's going to talk about the process, but we'll be glad to answer any questions at the end about our involvement and how we work together as a team. 15 years, we kind of know how the dance goes. Excuse me.
Thank you. Local owners rep projects that we have participated in. Maps 1, while I was with Bolt, I built the ballpark and the canal. And then in Maps 2, I built Douglas, John Marshall, and U.S. Grant. About the time, middle of Maps 2, I started my own business and worked with ADG. They were the program manager. I did their cost and constructability. Worked for them for Maps 2 and Maps 3. We've done a lot of scheduling for the city and for ADG. We actually had a schedule for Maps 2, Maps 3, Project 180, if you remember it, and the private sector as we facilitated 290 public events in downtown Oklahoma City while we were putting in the streetcar and doing projects downtown. The activities were over 12,000. So we have some abilities to schedule with groups and different entities and the stakeholders. Bennett Building out at the Oklahoma State Fairgrounds. We were owner's rep for Oklahoma State Fair Inc., working with MAPS, and Greg Bowler was actually on site with me, or we worked together on that project. Obrat Stadium, Oklahoma State University. I worked for Cowboy Athletics. I am the owner's rep for Oklahoma Cowboy Athletics, as the projects are built by Cowboy Athletics and then donated to Oklahoma State University. Train, we do a significant amount of work with Train overseas and locally as it relates to energy efficiency, energy projects, working with the FARs, with the 200, and of course the DoD FARs. So we're familiar with that. We have 22 people overseas working in those 4 offices, and that's probably going to continue to grow. Locally, we have 10. We have 32 on staff, so we have the ability to I think, take care of this project pretty well. One of the other projects recently was that you're familiar with is working with Triad. We were owner's rep and architect's rep on Oklahoma City Softball Hall of Fame. So that was about a $20 million project. Went well. Everything worked very well. And we worked with ESPN, ASA, the City of Oklahoma City, NCAA. So we've worked with very strong personalities through projects. Current local projects. We just finished cost and constructability analysis with the fairgrounds. It's been awarded with Populous. We're also on the team with Reeves for the diversion hub. Alfred Hall, Monaghan and Morris, the Family Justice Center. CEC, CB Cameron Parks and South Lake Parks. Oklahoma City projects include, again, with ADG, we're doing cost, scheduling, constructability for Oklahoma City Police and Fire Training. MA Plus, Fire Station number 31. Again, AHMM, Lake Hefner Golf Clubhouse. Related projects to your RFI include, we think, ADG, the Oklahoma City Police and Oklahoma City Courts Building. We also did the Norman Emergency Coordination Center with ADG out of Florida, Architectural Design Group. Of course, that was, I believe, ADG Oklahoma City was overseeing that, but we did, again, work with ADG Florida. City of Yukon, the Police Station Emergency Operations Center. And then GSB, I put this in here on the Omni Hotel because we had different funding sources, not unlike your projects. And we worked with the Alliance Economic Development, and I believe they made a $80 million funding of that project. And so we were working together, overseeing everyone's funds. I think I've worked with a lot of the project teams today. I think these smaller projects lend themselves to our scope and schedule and abilities. I think we'd be an excellent rep. I think we can review and look at the funding sources, the question and answer compliance, RFPs. We've done RFPs for all types of services. But the main thing is to get the pre-construction planning, scheduling requirements in place, the audit requirements in place, not only for the contractors and architects, but for ourselves. Project budgets requirements. We're going to review and assist in project budgets, project costs, review and assist in project scheduling. Now that we have 17 projects, we need a real schedule. We need priorities. We need to know the stakeholders. We need to plan and review those as we prepare scopes. And obviously review and assist project construction, execution, and analysis. We have a saying, we plan our work, then we work our plan. And I think that's key, especially with this ARPA, with the end designation date, termination. And so we set up and we get ready. Now we're into pre-construction services, RFPs for professional services. Geotech, I think most government entities right now are having the geotech direct to the owner, provided to the architect or engineer. We're seeing some exclusions of liability with architects and engineers with the geotech. So we'll work through that. Also RFPs for professional services, including contracting, bids, and selections. We also have to pick a contracting method. We're allowed to go CM, construction management. Is that the best path, or is it all going to be hard bid? Maybe the county goes totally hard bid, but under our project, under the FARs, and the procurement, we're allowed to go CM if we so desire. Construction reviews. Obviously, we have a funding review, financial review, budgets. What are the final requirements? Project plans. ARPA may require the as-built. Obviously, we need as-built for you, but that's also an audit requirement. Project completion schedules, site management reviews. Right now, we're scheduled for site management review to be with White, myself, Greg Bowler, and Jim Wilson. Post-construction audit and compliance will be Salazar and White. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about our staff that would be involved in this project. Myself, my background is architecture license, engineer license, construction for 40 years. Marcus Salazar, financial management. Ted Hartley is a nuclear engineer, actually from Washington, with a master's in computer science. He's our scheduler and cost designer. He designed our in-house system. Dr. Philip White, he's a partner. He's an electrical engineer. He has a BS from Oklahoma State, master's from Cambridge, doctorate from Texas. And he's our lead for electrical peer review. Dr. Maddie White, Oklahoma State graduate, Texas A&M master's, Colorado doctor, our peer review for mechanical engineering and review. Jim Wilson, he'll be more on construction site, but he also does, and he has 40 years experience, he also does mechanical license, he has it in review, plumbing license and review, and fire protection license and review. We also prefer KFC engineering structural review. We work with them quite often and have done county projects with KFC for you. And finally, Greg Bowler, Rough Mat, good friend, great guy, great person, and I would hope that he can be part of our project. The time, White, this project fits us very well. We have the staff available. We're more medium to smaller size firm, but you will be a very important portion of our backlog workload. And I think we have the staff available to take care of all your needs, and they're local. Again, we thank you very much for the opportunity and would entertain any questions. We have, and I'm gonna try to separate this. We have 22 personnel overseas. That backlog's fixed, and it's about 300 million overview. They're not part of it. We have 10 people here. We only have about $5 or $6 million worth of backlog, and really this project would fit us perfectly. Yeah.
Centers, time you would devote to on-site inspection.
That's why we have 3. Jim Wilson's worked with me for 15 years. He's our on-site guy. We do inspections 2-3 times a week. We're there for what we call critical review. So if we're making connections, if we're shutting down a system, if we're invading the owner space, we're there. If we have conflicts, we're there. But for the most part, we do 3 to 4 times a week. With 17 projects, it's going to take all 3 of us, maybe 4 of us, to review the projects timely. So that'll be myself, Jim Wilson. We would hire Greg Bowler. Greg Bowler has an assistant. We would employ him. Between Ruthnap and MMI, that makes up about 40% of our fee, our forecasted fee for our minority participation.
Disassembly of professionals who are working with them currently.
Oh, yeah. Philip White's my son. Maggie White's my daughter-in-law. Ted Hartley started with me on day 1. He designed my estimating system. We track 700 commodities on a weekly basis. We update our cost estimating all the time, every week. We've been very blessed and fortunate. A lot of the architects use us. We have a very diverse architect group.
Does your family fear you?
No. And I personally have had mechanical plumbing license, R-stamp license, and we've lived in Oklahoma our entire lives.
Sorry. You've done some work with Accenture. Can you describe the nature of that work? And
Accenture has two basic divisions. One is they've got staffing. They've got permanent staffing. They also have a lot of consultants that they hire, and everything. I mean, they're like the larger accounting firms. They have a number of consultants that they hire specific to the contract that they're pursuing. So I work with them mostly in the financial areas where we did compliance reviews for federal lending purposes. And I've worked with Collingwood Group. They're out of Washington, D.C., same thing. So it's not unlike what ADG and some of the other firms do, including ours. You contract with them, and then they act as the contracting agent, or in this case, the rep or whoever. So it's skill specific. It has to do with what the project is and what kind of experience they need. So they'll send out notices to a whole slew of people and say, "Are you interested in working on this project?" It's a consulting side that I've only worked with. I don't work with the permanent staff side very much.
okay, so financial reporting.
Financial
is your
reporting,
main aspect of
compliance,
Okay.
federal compliance is a biggie, especially for lending
Okay,
organizations.
thank you.
I'd like to add one comment. I think on this project, especially ARPA, especially any federal project with the procurement requirements, is we have overview, you have overview, we have compliance. Marcus does an excellent job of getting the audit and compliance requirements from this level to the architects and engineer level to the contractor level, and then compliance on the way back to be sure we meet all our audit requirements. And he does a great job at that. And until you've been through an audit, you always like to have him on your side. And finally, there's a I forgot about this. I'm on the board of Oklahoma Arts Council, Art in Public Places. Go back to our scenario. County project, state legislature, federal funds coming back this way. Is art in public places going to have the 1% requirement since it was approved by the state legislature? Our director is actually going to ask the Attorney General next week, to see if we can get a decision on that. So there are those kind of decisions that are made throughout the project.
Anything else?
No, we appreciate the opportunity. Again, we're a medium-sized firm. We have availability. I think we have an excellent team. We've done very well in the Oklahoma City market. I think we can help you. Thank you
All
all.
right. Thank you both for your time. All right, is there a motion on, what is this, item 5, I think? Is there a motion on item 5 to receive the presentation?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think our last remaining item is number 14. Kind of a catch-all item. Chantel?
Yes, on this item, item 14, this just allows us to discuss more about the next steps in the process. If there were any follow-up questions after you have time to think about these things, you all have a score sheet in front of you. I will need copies of those for the file, and that will be supportive documentation for any recommendation that you may have to the Board of County Commissioners as it relates to selection. But also it would give me some information if you needed me to have some follow-up conversations with the firms, any sort of callbacks or subsequent interviews that you may want to consider. The other thing that I have before you is a non-collusion affidavit. That is very standard, especially with federal compliance. We want to make sure we have those as well. If you need any help with that, just let me know. That's a standard form. Other than that, I'm open for conversation or answer any questions that you all have. What would be the pleasure of the board on how to move forward? You need a couple of days. What's the timeline? Are we wanting to get this done before the BOCC meeting next week, or perhaps the first meeting in January? Just some things for y'all to consider.
Given that we're not going to meet on the 27th, what would your time frame be in terms of liking to have these score sheets back? How?
If we were shooting for selection by the first part of January, I could just have the score sheets back before the holiday.
Okay.
That would be very helpful. And I don't know if this board would need to meet again before making a recommendation.
That's what I'm thinking. It may be best if perhaps we had until Thursday or Friday of this week to get those back to you. You could compile any information. If we had any individual follow-up questions, we could get those to Chantel and then look to schedule a special meeting to discuss and then be in a position to possibly make a recommendation at that first meeting in January, if that sounds good. Is it amenable to both of you that I just get with Chantel to try to look to schedule a future meeting and then ask the clerk to contact you both?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what y'all's process is, but could we even recess today and then come back in a few hours? I mean, I don't know.
I'm not going to be ready to come back in a few hours. In a few days, we could. I mean, this question, request for proposals. I do believe item 14 would be broad enough to allow us to take action on selecting a potential rep. You concur? Okay, Gretchen concurs. So, Chelsea, we could.
Have an extra.
Gretchen is ready. Is there a day next week then that you're thinking?
I'm just thinking This Wednesday? Not what on Wednesdays, okay.
We have policy and governance on Tuesday, the 20th. Would you be available, say, at 9 or 9:15 that morning?
Mhm.
Okay, how about that? Is there a motion then to recess until, you want 9 or 9:15?
9, it's fine.
Until 9 a.m., December the 20th? Okay. Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right,
Great.
thanks. Good idea.